What is a lobbyist? All right, in simple language, a lobbyist is someone who is paid to influence government decisions. Now, what they do is they talk to politicians and government officials. They argue about certain laws, policies, and decisions, and then they try to convince the government to act in the interest of whoever is paying them. It could be a company, it could be a group, they could be doing it for a cause, many reasons. A lobby, in a nutshell, is a professional persuader. In other words, you have to have a slick tongue to be able to do that. For example, if a company wants lower taxes, they hire a lobbyist to push that idea in government circles. If a group wants international support, like the Biafrans do right now, they hire a lobbyist to talk to foreign governments on their behalf. So basically, lobbyists are like middlemen who try to influence governments by using access, arguments, and whatever relationships they have built. That is what they do. So let's go back to the story since I've explained it in simple terms what a lobbyist is and what they do. Now that I've broken down what a lobbyist is, let's look at the reason for all this lobbying in the first place. Now, reason number one is to send a message or to communicate to policymakers in the United States that Nigeria's is making effort in terms of protecting Christian communities and also in fighting terrorism. Now, that is the first reason why they're doing this, to spread the narrative that they're actually fighting terrorism and they're protecting the Christian community like they're being in to counter what they've been accused of doing. That's the first reason. Now, the second reason is hand in hand with the first reason, which is to counter uh, the negative narratives, well, narratives that they see as negative, which, yeah, are pretty much negative about Nigeria, especially the narrative that Christians are being sliced and diced in Nigeria and that the violence is systematic. Well, here's what I think about all this. The truth of the matter is, these things are happening. Now, there are lots of naysayers who say it's not happening, people who argue about it. Sometimes, even some people in mainstream media, I don't know if they're getting paid to say that. I'm not going to mention any names, it's not necessary, but a couple of mainstream anchors really do a number when it comes to that. They talk about it as if it's not happening, like it was something that somebody made up. But who makes up a thing like that? Now, these are the same people that report these things every day through their platforms, through the platforms. I'm talking about people who work for platforms now, people who are employees on mainstream media platforms, who for some reason seem to believe that the whole thing is a hoax. I saw an interview the other day where one of them had a guest, and when it got to the point where the guest actually mentioned the name of a specific ethnic group, which, to be honest, they make up 99.9999% of the perpetrators. As soon as the person mentioned that, the anchor just looked for a way to end the conversation and just, you know, it was just, I mean, why'd you have him there if you knew it all anyway? So you see, now if there's negative information going on, uh, spreading around about Nigeria, and the government, obviously, excuse me, is in a position to counter this negative information, the best way to do that is by taking care of the situation, is by actually fighting terrorism, Now they are spending $9 million. Let me say it again, $9 million to basically pay people to tell the US that there's no such thing like Christian, suppression going on in Nigeria, which there is. I didn't even say genocide, I said suppression, which is how it begins, really. And it's multifaceted. Yes, the violence in Nigeria is multifaceted. It's happening on for various reasons, but it doesn't mean that is not one of the reasons. That is one of the biggest pieces in the puzzle, believe it or not. So they can spend time to convince the world that nothing is happening, but they cannot spend that same amount to actually fight the terrorism. Why are they willing to spend so much money? And I'm beginning to wonder, who are the actual terrorists here? Why the pity party? Why do you feel sorry for them? Why? Why are they so unwilling to fight these people? Now, another reason is also to boost Nigeria's image uh, in various ways, in terms of diplomatically and otherwise. We haven't been doing so well. There are a lot of, like, they just appointed ambassadors, I think, less than 2 months ago. So that's also another reason for this. But do you really need lobbying for that? Do you really need to spend that amount of money? Now, here's another theory. Here's a theory I have. I think it's just another opportunity to chop some money, like we like to say in Nigeria. To be completely honest, it's just another excuse. Oh, we have to, somebody says, oh, we have to do this and do that to counter this information, and he uses it as an opportunity to line his pockets. Does that sound familiar? Do you get where I'm driving at? It could very well be. But at the end of the day, the bottom line is this shows that they are not, the Nigerian government, it shows to me it's an admission of guilt in terms of their complicity. And it also shows that they are not willing to fight terrorism like they should be. And it is a crying shame. Now, here's one other thing before we wrap this up. All that money they're spending, it's dead on arrival. It is going nowhere. Just like Gumi said, the herdsmen and the bandits are going nowhere. Well, your plans to convince the US that there's nothing like Christian genocide happening in Nigeria is going nowhere. They already have all the information. They have more data than you think. They probably know more than you guys do. So they have all the information. I remember when that, what was his name again? Riley Reid, I believe was his name, the senator who went to Benue State and visited the IDP camps. I remember when he was going on that visit, they called it a fact finding mission. But you know what I called it? That wasn't a fact finding mission. The facts were already found. So it was just a formality because they found the facts already. Now, this situation has been going on in Nigeria for a long time with a disgusting, reprehensible amount of impunity. And they always thought that just like other conflicts in Africa, the world would turn a blind eye. But they were wrong. Because now they've gotten the world's attention. They've gotten Trump's attention. Now, before you call me a slave and say I should stop egging Trump on because he's not coming to save me, I never said he was coming to save us. They're not doing it for us. They're doing it to prevent Nigeria from becoming a hub for international terrorism. You got the attention of the big boys. That's right. And now it's time to dance. Here comes Benjamin Netanyahu. Do you remember last year when the Vice President Kashim Shettima went to the UN and spewed all that stuff about Israel while he was speaking? Well, there's freedom of speech. You can say whatever you want to say, but after you finish talking, there'll be consequences for what you said. Well, now it's coming to bite him in the butt. Because of what he said at that speech, he wasn't diplomatic about it. He all but threatened Israel and was touting Nigeria as an Islamic country that had the power to help the Gazans. In other words, they would be coming after Israel. So Israel rubbed their hands in glee and said, okay, very good. Before you come after us, we'll come after you. And that is why Israel has picked up interest in this case. So it's no longer about the farmers that they've been smoking and taking their land, the poor farmers, the farmers they've been killing in Zamfara, from Zamfara all the way to Enugu, the Middle Belt, Benue, Plateau, Taraba, Nasarawa, uh, driving people out of their homes and replacing them, renaming these places. It's no longer just those people who were not even allowed to defend themselves while you lot, were allowed to carry weapons. It's not about that anymore. There's a new entrant into this battle royal, and that person has guns that are bigger than yours. They got guns that got guns that got guns that got guns, like somebody once said. Every bully has his day. And to the bullies in Nigeria who've been smoking people left, right, and center, even though it was never a fair fight, the odds are about to even up. That's right. All right, if you enjoyed this little chat we had, feel free to subscribe to my channel. Let's do this again next time. See ya. Now, spend